Did you know the average person spends 4 years of his life looking down at his cell phone? Kinda ironic, ain't it? How these touch screens can make us lose touch. But it's no wonder in a world filled with iMacs, iPads, and iPhones. So many eyes, so many selfies, not enough us's and we's. See, technology has made us more selfish and separate than ever. 'Cause while it claims to connect us, connection has gotten no better. And let me express first, Mr. Zuckerberg, not to be rude, but you should reclassify Facebook to what it is, an anti-social network. 'Cause while we may have big friend lists, so many of us are friendless all alone. 'Cause friendships are more broken than the screens on our very phones. We sit at home on our computers measuring self-worth by numbers of followers and likes. Ignoring those who actually love us, it seems we'd rather write an angry post and talk to someone who might actually hug us. Am I bugging? You tell me, 'cause I asked a friend the other day, let's meet up face to face. They said, all right, what time you wanna Skype? I responded with OMG, SRS, and then a bunch of SMHs and realized, what about me? Do I not have the patience to have conversation without abbreviation? This is the generation of media overstimulation. Chats have been reduced to snaps. The news is 140 characters. Videos are 6 seconds at high speed. And you wonder why ADD is on the rise faster than 4G LTE. But get a load of this. Studies show the attention span of the average adult today is 1 second lower than that of a goldfish. So if you're one of the few people or aquatic animals that have yet to click off or close this video, congratulations. Let me finish by saying you do have a choice, yes. But this one, my friends, we cannot autocorrect. We must do it ourselves. Take control or be controlled, make a decision. Me? No longer do I want to spoil a precious moment by recording it with a phone. I'm just gonna keep them. I don't want to take a picture of all my meals anymore. I'm just gonna eat them. I don't want the new app, the new software, or the new update. And if I want to post an old photo, who says I have to wait until Thursday? I'm so tired of performing in the pageantry of vanity and conforming to this accepted form of digital insanity. Call me crazy, but I imagine a world where we smile when we have low batteries. 'Cause that'll mean we'll be one bar closer to humanity.
Hey, we back, everybody. Welcome back to the I've Been Falsely Accused radio show. I'm your host, Cogee. My man, Mr. Jeffrey Deskovic, we want to thank him, for being here with us on his birthday, because he could have took a birthday day today and been off from work with me today, but, he went ahead and he came in, he gave us 2 hours. Jeffrey, happy birthday. Enjoy yourself. Be safe. And to everybody around the world, I want to say thank you. And to all the people that, called in to talk to Jeffrey, I want to say thank you. And to everybody who supports me and Jeffrey, who write us, who gives us likes, who's following us, and who always has, some encouraging words for us. I thank you all. And we definitely do this show, like I said, for the people. We bring great guests in. And not only do I want to say thank you for the people that support us, I want to say thank you to the guests that come on our show and definitely bring that knowledge. I want to say thank you to all the attorneys that come on. And we done have some great attorneys on this show that then gave us some real great, advice to help us move forward with our families. But like I said, use pen and use a paper. A pen and a paper is what you need for these shows, are your notes in your phone or whatever. I want y'all to definitely lock in this information, because when these great exonerees and these great attorneys come through our show, they doing this on the love. They're not paid to do it. But when they come, I want to show them the utmost respect that I do care about their time. And y'all know, whenever I call on y'all to ask one of them something, always come in with the respect of, hello, how you doing? Thank you for being on the show. I think that's one thing we can do, is show that courtesy on all my shows at all times when it comes to talking to our guests, because like I said, not only are they your guests, they're my guests first, and I'm introducing y'all. So that's the way that it's supposed to be done, because that's how grown people, that's how grown folks, that's how we all interact with each other, with respect, because we are a reflection of what other people see from us. You know what I'm saying? So let's always have that respect. Let's always have a great show, and let's definitely get that knowledge. So in this hour, we got back again, who was in the first hour, Mr. David McCallum. He's an exoneree who spent 29 years in prison on something that he didn't do, and y'all going to hear more about the case. We got attorney Mr. Oscar Michelen, and he's here with us. He's one of the attorneys that helped to free David. So we got y'all both in. Thank you for being on again today, fellas.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Now, what I want to do real quick, I want to go to David. I want to ask you something. And Oscar, I'm already set you up for the question because I'm coming to you next. I want you to let us know what law firm you with, you know, who all you done represented getting out other than David when I come right back to you, okay?
Sure.
All right. So, David, I'm going to go to you. David, what did that clip mean to you that I played? I played it on purpose. What did that clip mean to you when you heard it?
Well, what it meant for me is hope. You know, hope is an extremely important tool to have, you know, while you're in prison, you know, because there's a lot of things stacked against you, you know. There are prison distractions, and there's all sorts of problems that a person can find themselves in if they're not very, very careful. But what it also means to me is knowing that there's messages out there that if people pay close enough attention to, that it can actually take them a long way. You know, it can inspire them. It can motivate them to fight for what they believe in. And as I've always said in the past, there's nothing more powerful than the truth. We can try to circumvent the truth. We can try to compromise our truth. But the bottom line is the truth is just the truth. And I think it's messages like that, whether it be through music or just through the spoken word, I think it's essential to people like myself, especially when I was incarcerated, who listened to these words, and these words were so profound that I couldn't help but be motivated, you know, like to get out of that place. So that's what it means to me.
That's right. Now, David, let me ask you this also. Do you feel like that since you've been out with cell phones and these apps and all the different stuff that's going on, do you feel like it's a disconnect with folks nowadays? Like in prison, you know, y'all didn't have all that 24/7. So with y'all not having that 24/7, y'all had a lot more communication, a lot more face-to-face. You could express yourself more better. Do you feel like that's kind of hurt you also being out?
To some extent, but I do think that it's a pro and con effect. I think technology, as I'm starting to understand it more and more, I think it's relevant. I think it's necessary, but at the same time, I think a one-on-one conversation and communication should not be lost by any of us as well. So I think it's a give and take approach. I think there's a pro and con element attached to it, but for the most part, and I don't mean to be on the fence with this response, but I think it's a pro and con. I think it's a classic pro and con element to it. Yes, I do.
Okay, there it is. Now I'm gonna go to you real quick, Oscar. I want to ask you a question, and that question was: You can tell us what law firm you represent, what all you've been doing, and some of the people that you have got out already, and some that's on your docket right now to be coming out.
Well, the name of the firm is Cuomo LLC, spelled the same way as our current governor, and we're a litigation firm in Manhattan and Long Island. And David's the third case that I've gotten exonerated. I've worked on 3 others that we just weren't able to get it done, that are still out there, working on. But the first one was about 12 years ago, a guy named Angelo Martinez, who served 18 years for murder he didn't commit. And then about 7 years ago, a guy named Emil McDowell, who did about 12 years for a murder he didn't commit. And then, of course, David's case. But, on David's case in particular, we were really blessed to be part of a very powerful team. Yes, I was the lead attorney, the main focus, but we had, thanks to Reuben Carter, the hurricane, he was able to pull in some pretty powerful people to help us along the way, including Professor Steve Drizin of Northwestern University, who was an expert on wrongful conviction in general, but specifically false confession. He provided a very critical analysis of David and Willie's confession to establish how many elements it had that were provably false and pretty typical of false confession. And then we had Laura Cohen of Rutgers University Law School, the Criminal and Youth Justice Clinic there. So the 3 of us, of course, along with David's efforts, were, constantly behind the various legal arguments, machinations. We had an investigator, Van Paget. We had Reuben Carter's Innocence International, along with their head, Ken Klonsky, helping us with support along the way. So, that's another message that you folks got to take out there is you got to try to get this a network of support, because it is very difficult to do, to overturn a jury verdict 29 years later. We were lucky that we had David championing his own cause as well and leading the way, but it took a body of people, right, David? It took a body of people.
Oh, absolutely, to say the least. Yes.
You know what? And when you say that it takes a body of people, Oscar, what I want you to do, I want you to break it down for our listeners all around the world. When you say a body of people, you're talking about a movement. You're talking about people with influences. You're talking about people with the hookup. You get what I'm saying? I mean, break it all down to my listeners.
It starts out, it starts out with people willing to listen to folks who are in David's position. One of the most frustrating things I could imagine is you're in prison and it's trying to get somebody to help you. So you have to first have people who are open to the possibility that they can devote some of their time and energy to these causes. I'm, fortunate enough that my practice allows me to have that kind of time, and I'm at the stage of my career after 30 years that I've got some time to devote to these types of cases. But then you have organizations like the one that just started, the Deskovic Foundation, like Innocence, the Innocence Project, Innocence International. These foundations, folks, if you can't get involved personally, you can donate to those causes. You can help support those causes so that they can get the job done, for the folks who are in similar situations. So, it's not an easy thing to have someone listen and overturn a conviction, decades later. And if you could get folks to start a petition, if you can get folks to even write the inmates, just let them know that someone's hearing them, someone's thinking about them, maybe exchange ideas, try to contact lawyers for them. There's so many ways that people can get involved in this movement, and it is a movement, to put in their 2 cents.
Right. Now, I'm going to ask you one more question. Well, I'm going to go to David real quick. David, I want to ask you a question. How important is it, and then I'm going to go to my phones because I got people on the phones that want to ask y'all questions as well. Alan, man, get ready. I'm coming to you next. David, I want to ask you this. How important is it to support the different organizations like Jeffries and Oscars and different people who are really fighting and keeping the heat going to help free the innocent people?
I can tell you it's very important, and my point can't be illustrated better than I'm about to, I believe. During the course of my criminal appeals, particularly when they were exhausted, I decided to write a letter writing campaign. I decided to start a letter writing campaign. And during that process, without no exaggerating, I must have written about maybe 600 or plus letters. Some people I wrote over and over again simply because I refused to take no for an answer. So I can tell you, just to add on to what Oscar was previously saying, how difficult it is to obtain the help one needs to overcome a situation such as wrongful convictions. So I would encourage anyone out there, including the public, including those who are still languishing in prison, that to continue to write, because you never know who's going to pick up your letter. You never know who is going to have at least a bit of compassion to show towards these sort of causes, because they are very important. When you talk about these organizations such as Innocence International, the Innocence Project, and the Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation for Justice, it's very, very important to keep contacting these individuals. Even if you assume that you're being a nuisance to these organizations, I think you owe it to yourself and your family to continue to do so, because eventually, I believe anyway, and I may be a perfect example of that, I think something good will eventually come of it. And I think it's important for people to really understand that these organizations, although they do massive, massive work, unfortunately, through experience, I understand also that they can't take on every case that they get request to take. So knowing that, I think it's important for anyone to continue to sort of push the envelope just to make sure that their case at least have a chance to be taken by one of these organizations.
That's right. I hear you. Way to break it down. Definitely. I'm going to go to Alan, man. Alan, man, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good, Coach. How you doing?
All right. So check us out, Alan, man. So we got David. David McCallum on here. He's done 29 years in prison for something he didn't do. And we got attorney Oscar Michelen on here as well. What would you like to ask David, and what would you like to say to both of them real quick, Alan, man?
Hello, guys. How you guys doing?
Fine, thank you.
Really appreciate you guys being part of our show. You know, we just so happy that you guys can help us to just bring that knowledge out here to people who are free, who have not ever been incarcerated or, had bad luck, I guess I want to ask both of you guys. Okay, first David, what do you look for when you're looking for a lawyer to represent you? I mean, what makes you choose the person that you choose? Is it funds, or is it the amount of case that they've won, or I mean, what is it? What do you look for when you choose someone?
Oh, okay, thank you. Well, in my particular situation, I just wrote letters, man, and sometimes when you write letters, you're not necessarily looking for a particular attorney. You're just looking for someone to just listen to you. And as soon as you get the opportunity for someone to listen to your cause or your plea for help, in my case, it was actually a cry for help, then you go from there. I couldn't tell you that if there's one particular thing that I look for in an attorney. Once you are, I guess, fortunate enough to obtain an attorney, then I think at that point you deserve an opportunity, to see what this attorney is all about. And then at that point it becomes what I call a working relationship from that point on.
Okay, now, are you do you have an organization out here that actually helps you pay for these attorney, or
No, that was David that answered that question.
Okay, that was David. Okay,
you want to say it to Oscar?
Right, Oscar. Oscar,
yeah, we handle our cases, the ones that we take, at no charge as far as the exoneration piece is concerned, and that's the way a lot of the organizations that I mentioned, operate. If you have the money, you could always find a lawyer who will charge money to look at your case, and that you have to be much more careful about who you choose, because do they have experience? Are they really going to do it? It was spoken about a little bit earlier, Cogee. You were mentioning how, sure, give me $5,000 now, and then it's another $5,000 later, then another $10,000, and you're not seeing any result. Mm-hmm. So I would say you have to be even more cautious when you're dealing with a lawyer who's charging your family money, to make sure that they're going to commit to certain benchmarks. We're going to do this by this date, do it by that date. Do they have the right experience? Do they know how to, build a team like we were discussing and have, the effort put behind it, or are they just trying to grab, your family's last $5,000 in some, measure of false hope?
That's right.
Now as far as you get to some of these other organizations, like David mentioned, they have a lot of cases. So many times you could find that even when they take your case, they could tell you, we're going to take your case, but we're not going to look at it for a couple of years, or we can't focus on it right now. And it's disheartening. But it's important to keep writing them, because look at my situation, for example. Now that I'm finished with David, I might be open now to take more cases that I might have, while I was actively working on David. I could really just wanted to focus on that. So you never know if you're catching them at the time that they might be looking for that particular type of case, or in that neighborhood, that borough, or if their time is now more available. So it's a matter of persistence as well.
Okay. All right. So you get it, Alan, man? Is it all good?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
I do have one more question for David, though.
Okay, go ahead.
Now, for say another case that someone is paying you versus someone that's not paying you, do you find it that you put more time into the person who's paying you for a certain thing, or for someone who can't afford it, or do you put the same amount of time in?
That's Oscar. That's for Oscar.
Yeah. Well,
look,
sorry. And I think David knows that. The plain fact is that when you're doing something pro bono, you still have to operate your law firm. and you still have to have paying clients who are expecting you to do the work that you have to do. That's why, when whoever takes the case on, whether it's pro bono or paid, you have to ask them what the time commitment is that they can devote to it. But once you devote your energy to a case, you got to devote it, whether it's being paid or pro bono or whatever, to the credit that it deserves. A lot of what was happening with David's case was nothing would be happening for a while. We might be waiting for, let's say, a DNA test result, or our investigator tracked down a witness, and then it was really just, communicating with David. He would write letters, keeping the team informed as to what was happening, and then all of a sudden, we found a witness. Then we'd spend 3 or 4 days in a row trying to track the witness down. We went upstate and stayed trying to track a particular witness down. So you devote 3 or 4 days in a row at that time. When you write a motion, you could spend a week or so writing and arguing that motion, that whole week. In the time leading up to David's exoneration, we were spending a lot of time, planning and strategizing and doing that. So whoever you decide to use as either a paid lawyer or a pro bono lawyer or, one of these foundations, those are the types of questions you have to ask. How will you devote the time to it? What kind of attention is it going to get? And make sure that, your case is being paid attention to. So we don't really, devote less time to a case because it's pro bono. It's just that the nature of David's particular case is that it was not a constant thing going on. We had to keep looking for new evidence, and then once we found it, then we invested the time and energy that was necessary to get it done.
Okay. All right.
Now, I do have one more question for David. So.
All right, go ahead.
David, now, if have you been in a situation where you've had a lawyer working for you, and you didn't feel like they were doing what you wanted them to do? Now, have you had to, basically fire a lawyer, even though you might be paying, you might not be paying? How do you handle that?
Wow, that's a very good question. I think it's important to at least have an idea about your case first and foremost. You really must understand the details and the intricacies of your case. If you don't, then the point of view telling some attorney what they should or shouldn't do really makes no sense. So I think the onus initially is on the individual first. Once you understand your case to the point where you have an idea about how the case should be, represented, then you take the initiative to start, making certain suggestions to an attorney in terms of what they should or shouldn't do in your particular case. So I hope that's kind of satisfied your question.
Okay.
Yes,
right.
Thank you.
All right. Foxy, what would you like to ask the guys real quick?
Oh, I just wanted to ask Oscar, he's a lawyer in New York, right?
Yes.
Because I have a grandson who's doing a little bit of time right now, and my daughter is not satisfied with his lawyer. If you could just let me get your number, and she could call you and talk to you.
Sure. I mean, the office number is 212-448-9933. You could also email me at Oscar Michelen. That's OSCARMICHELEN @gmail. And you can also find me on my web blog is courtroomstrategy.com. So there's lots of ways to find me on the web. You can just put my name in; it's going to come up, and we'll be glad to look at it.
All right, I appreciate that.
All right.
Absolutely, it's tough because since David's release, we've probably gotten 2 or 3 dozen requests for help.
Right.
And we're looking at as many as we can, and some we're referring to other organizations that are looking for those types of cases. Some we can try to help out on our own. I even discussed with David, throwing a few his way to take a look and see what he thinks, because he's frankly an expert on wrongful conviction after fighting his for so many years. So if we can't help, we'll try to funnel it towards an organization that might be able to do that, or at least tell you what you need to do to get your case ready to be heard, if you will, by someone like myself or someone like Deskovic or Innocence International.
All right, I really appreciate that.
Okay.
You got it.
And one more thing, Oscar, can you say that number one more time a little slower?
Sure. So my number is 212-448-9933, and its first name is Oscar, last name is Michelen, Michelen, and you just no space, Oscar Michelen at Gmail, or you can just put it in the web, and all my contact information, will pop right up on Google.
Okay.
You can look at David's name, my name. We're connected forever on the internet.
Oh yeah.
And you can find us that way as well.
Okay, thank you. Now I want to ask you something real quick, Oscar. I'm gonna come to you again.
Yeah.
Are you very proud of all your achievements thus far in your career? Or is
Sure.
it anything that you're a little disappointed about?
Look, the most disappointing thing is that we came along after Willie had passed. I wish that we had, been able to get involved with it in time to, free him while he was still alive. And second to that, we would have loved to have, had this done, in time for Reuben Carter to be alive. He passed away this April. And listen, every lawyer's had losses. So we've had losses, cases that, were heartbreaking along the way for sure.
Right.
But the victories, far outnumber. David's probably one of the sweetest, in our career. But, I'm still young, still in my 50s. There's plenty more to keep working on. So
that's right. Don't put us in the grave.
We're still moving forward.
Don't put us in the grave. Tell him.
Exactly, right.
That's right, definitely. So you know what? I want to go to you real quick, David, and I just want to say, David, since you've been out, how has it been, keeping a real good attitude every time you see certain people, that they moved forward, and a lot of people that you dealt with when you was younger, and you might see some of them that are really, have a great career right now. How do you keep your attitude adjusted just right to stay focused for you to move forward, without feeling like, man, I'm watching this person live this type of life, and I had the same chance, and they just picked me out and snuffed my life out, and I'm asking you this because like I said, a lot of exonerees then came through our show, and I see they still, they still on that line at cuff. You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah, sure. So when I was in prison, of course, I thought about a lot of different things, and to name just a few, I thought about some of the guys I knew prior to my arrest and, what they would be doing, who would still be with us in terms of living, or who may have passed away for whatever reason. And I can tell you there's no bigger motivation than staying out here than just thinking about what's in there. That's right. I'm not the one to sort of glorify prison in any way. Prison is not a place where you want to try to glorify. This place, if you're not careful, it can swallow you up. And I've seen it happen time and time again, unfortunately. So my motivation is very, very clear. I simply will not, under any circumstances, ever put myself in a position to come back to a place like this. Okay, that's number one. Number two, there's success stories in life. And I had already a few of my friends approach me who are doing very well for themselves. They're raising families, they're paying taxes, and they're just doing what they're supposed to do as responsible human beings, Right. And so when I sat in prison and thought about some of these guys and to see them now and how well they're doing for themselves and their families, wow, you can't help but appreciate that. So, it's very, very inspiring to see, because too often than not, a lot of guys that I knew went the other way, went the complete opposite way. And so those are the individuals, quite frankly, I don't have really a lot of time for because, a case in point, I had an individual, a friend who I knew before I came to prison. He actually offered me some money, and I had to turn him down simply because that was the right thing to do, And I don't want to put myself in a position to be distracted by anyone or any given thing. I have a short-term plan that I want to address, and I have every intention to do so, and I will not, and I refuse to allow anybody to disrupt that. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Okay, I hear you. Now, let me ask you this. How do you feel about Detective Joseph Butt?
Well, Detective Joseph Buddha.
It's Buddha?
Unfortunately.
I'm sorry, they have Butt on my paper. Sorry about that.
Yes, no
That's
problem.
I gotta get on. I gotta
about
get
it.
on my research person about that one. So my bad on
Okay.
that one.
No problem, sir. Well, you know, as a 16-year-old kid sitting in that precinct, you know, you would think what any, I guess, person would think under those circumstances. They have the wrong person. It will be addressed, and I'll be let out at some point, you know, that night. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. In my recollection, in my opinion about police and law enforcement in general, you have good law enforcement and you have bad law enforcement. So
definitely.
to paint every detective or police officer in the light of Detective Buddha would be totally and grossly unfair. So when you talk about a guy like Police Buddha, it's really a shame because he, of course, was protected by, I guess, the system itself. So I really don't think much of him, to be perfectly honest with you. I've been blessed with the opportunity of getting out of prison, and now I can sort of move on with the rest of my life, and I'm certainly happy with that.
Right, and the reason why I asked you what did you think about him, what I was setting up to ask you was, you know, that you was going, you know, I wanted you to break it down, and you still can. I'm gonna let you come back real quick. I want you to break it down when I ask you what did you think about him, you know, where you said, well, I felt like me being that young, I shouldn't have been treated that way. He was an adult, and you know, how can he not look at me as a child and know he probably had a child? And why does cops and why does different attorneys, they don't look at it like, what if this was my child? What if somebody put my child in a twist and in a trick bag like this? You get what I'm trying to say? That's
Sure.
that's where I was going with it.
Okay.
How was your feelings towards that?
Oh, wow. I mean, you know, it's, you know, we're talking about law enforcement, and we're talking about, and then in the case of Police Officer Buddha, you know, you know, it's hard to really, I guess, respond to that in a particular way, other than what I just explained to you. But I guess I'll try to be much more specific in that there were certain things that this officer could have done, you know, at least taking me to the precinct, you know. He could have avoided putting his hands on me. I mean, there's just so many things that he could have done to avoid, you know, this terrible situation, you know. And
But, you know, Coach,
unfortunately, that's probably, yes.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off, David.
But I was going to say that's probably the best way I can express that.
Yeah, what I think also what David mentioned earlier was that we saw how Lieutenant, Detective Scarcello in the neighboring precinct, he's responsible. They're looking at over 40 of his cases alone. You know, this was the standard operating procedure back then. So Buddha was trained this way. That's the way his detective partners told him how to behave. They didn't know how to deal with it any differently. They were, you know, seeing any way that they could lock up, you know, particularly young men of color at that particular time. They were going to use every trick in the book. They didn't care whether they were guilty of this crime. If not, you know, their mentality was they committed some other crime. So who cares? They're all skells. They're all criminals. You know, it doesn't matter whether they did this or not. We just got to get them off the streets, lock them up, and, you know, I could advance my career. So this was not unique to Joseph Buddha, who's now deceased. This was standard operating procedure, and particularly in those Brooklyn precincts and that homicide squad.
That's right. I give it. You know what? Now let me do this. Since you went right there with that, Oscar, let's go right back into that. What don't people understand about a lot of these cases? How they get closed really fast. Let's talk about the plea deals. Let's talk about being beat up. Let's talk about, you know.
Exactly. Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. They put pressure on young people in particular. If you look at out of the DNA cases that have been exonerated, Cogee, since there's been DNA, over 30% involve a false confession. Okay? So David's case is not unique in that fashion either. 1 in 3 approximately of all exonerations ever in the history involve a false confession. So these cops, they're not trained to care. They're trained to close out cases. And particularly in the 80s, when crime was very rampant in New York, between crack and carjacking and chain snatching, etc., they they didn't care whose rights were being violated. They didn't care how many innocent people were being locked up. They just wanted to close those cases out. And then going back to the second thing you mentioned, which is folks without the resources to go to trial very often are put in a situation where they'll take a plea to, something even they didn't do because they see the risk, okay? New York does not have what they call a no-low contendere like they do in your state and in California, where you could say, I'm not guilty, but I can see where it's going, and I'll cut my losses.
Right.
Here, you have to admit your guilt and take the plea. Both David and Willie, during the course, they turned down plea offers along the way. Not a lot of people have that fortitude. They could have done, I think 15 was the years that were offered to them at that particular time. That's a lot of pressure on people.
Wow.
Do I take a chance and go to trial to prove my innocence or to get the case dismissed, or do I take a plea so that I'll eventually get home, and see my family again?
Right.
So when you're not seeing your lawyer's not visiting you, your lawyer's not making the right motions, he's not making the right arguments. Again, using David's case as an example, he only saw his lawyer when he came to court. Lawyer never visited him all the time. He was waiting in Rikers for years while they're waiting for the trial to come up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to expect someone who's not particularly educated, doesn't have resources for good counsel, doesn't understand the system. They're stuck in Rikers where they don't get access to the law library and things like that like you would in a state prison. You're just trying to survive every day when you're in Rikers.
Right.
So, you now come to court, you don't see your lawyer, you got to rely on what he tells you. If he says, look, you're going to lose, and you can do 25 to life, or take 10, and you'll be out in 10 years. You'll be out in 8, 9 years. Well, a lot of folks, even innocent people, take those pleas.
Okay.
You can understand why.
Okay, Oscar, let me go here with you real quick, David. I'm coming back to you. I ain't forgot about you, but I really want this information to be out there because we don't want nobody else in David's position after this show with the knowledge that we're given right now. Now, if something does happen, we want them to be prepared to deal with it. You get what I'm saying, Oscar?
Yes.
Okay, now what I want to ask you, why when different police, detectives, and when they do these certain underhanded, dirty things that they do to people to get them in a twist, why can't you have a civil lawsuit against them when they set in a position to destroy your life?
Yeah, you can, but you know what? Even if you sue them and even if you win, most often it's the city that pays. It's not even them. They don't pay out of their own pocket. And prosecutors are almost always immune from suit. You can't even sue the prosecutors 9 times out of 10. Very difficult.
But when somebody has that much power and they're not worried about nothing happening to them, they sometimes never do their job right.
Of course.
Right. So what I'm saying is we really need a law where you have to stand for what you done. How is it that you can make citizens, we have to stand for anything we done, and that's all it is to it. Well, why ain't it a mirror? Why ain't it a mirror of justice?
And David mentioned it in the thing. They're protected by the system, Cogee.
No,
they're protected by the system. We need to try to get our legislators to understand that needs to be changed to make them accountable. And I'm only talking about once you prove that they did somebody wrong. Okay, you got to go. You have to prove your case. Okay, if you can establish that somebody, did something wrong, violated someone's constitutional rights. There are laws that allow those claims to be brought, okay? There's a civil law, federal law called Section 1983 of the U.S. Code that allows you to bring civil rights claims against the individuals who violated your rights.
Mm-hmm.
But the problems there is the government and not the individual pays, and there's very, very rarely are they punished once it's established. And secondly, most of the time, prosecutors, as opposed to police officers, are immune from those types of lawsuits. And that's something that I think absolutely has to change.
Right, and that's what I don't understand. Somebody can just destroy your life, but in no kind of way. If you fight back, if you fight back, you shoot, you kill, you do something, then you set up to get the electric chair. But they can electric chair you at any moment in the street at any time, and it's fair.
And they did that in David's case. David was not completely treated unfairly by the judge, the prosecutor, and the police officers. And believe me, we're looking to hold them accountable, but we're going to be hit with immunity claims on the prosecutor's side especially.
Okay, but this is what I don't understand too, Oscar. And you know, me and you, we sharing information right now, okay? So don't think I'm coming at you. We just sharing information.
Of course, no.
Right.
We all welcome the dialogue.
Okay, right. We just sharing information. My thing is, how long is every city going to continue to get hit with these lawsuits instead of getting these renegades out of the way and off the street and get back to a regular functioning, police force and everything where the city can be ran a little bit more better? I know we need crime. Well, they need crime to keep the city going, because that's court system money, attorney money. Crime makes the city go round. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, but my thing is, how many lawsuits got to be hit? How much money has got to be given away over something that somebody didn't have to do?
Right. So I'm with you. In the beginning, and I got to tell you, that's one thing that we want to credit DA Kenneth Thompson in Brooklyn, because his office is a model for doing it the right way.
Okay.
And he set up a conviction review unit that's spending time and money. They don't care who they got to name. They will go back and look at the convictions, and if they're wrong, they will reverse them.
Okay.
And I think that's what people have to realize is the government needs to spend resources in that area to make sure that DAs understand their responsibility. And, most of the time you see elected officials get elected on saying, I'm going to be tough on crime and tough on crime. DA Thompson made a commitment to his constituency in Brooklyn that he was going to raise awareness of this issue and run a fair DA's office. And it can be done. It's no miracle. You don't have to violate somebody's rights to fight crime. You can have a very effective police force. You can have a very effective DA's office that honors people's constitutional rights. It can be done, and I think DA Thompson is trying to start that, in his office, making that a very, very high point of awareness for his young prosecutors that are working for him.
Right. We need to get him through this show. I definitely want to bring him.
There you go.
Okay. Well, if you got a connection with him, I definitely want to bring him through this show and talk about it, because like I said, what's fair has to be fair. If you can't just treat us any kind of way, and then if we get out of line in any kind of way, I mean, oh my God, we can get the electric chair. We can go to prison for life. We can just be treated any kind of way. But I want to ask you one more question real quick, Oscar. What do you think about all the shootings right now of all the white cops killing the black men? I want to ask you that.
It's, I can't believe, frankly, that in this day and age, that we're still dealing with this. I mean, really?
That's right.
It's remarkable to me. It's a disgrace. And again, we need to have, and it happens in my, it's people of color as well in the Latino community. I'm Dominican, and we've had some very serious shooting cases involving young Latinos as well in the Dominican neighborhoods here in New York also. But it also starts with recruiting to minorities. Let's get minority officers involved in the police department.
Right.
A lot of times you see these officers, particularly in these small areas, they see themselves, Cogee, not as a police force, they see themselves like an occupying force.
Right.
They're using weapons that are used in war. They've got tanks. They've got riot gear. They have these weapons that it's shoot first, ask questions later, and it's really unbelievable that here we are in 2014, and particularly in the South, it looks like we're still dealing with 1962.
Yeah, you're right about that.
And I think it's really educating the police force, getting diversity in the police force, and not just at the street level, but also in the administration.
Yeah,
to realize that their job is to protect the community.
Right.
They're not occupiers. They're supposed to be working with the community.
Right. Well, let me ask you this real quick, Oscar. I got to come to you because I'm on fire, and I got so many questions for you and David as well. Now, what I am going to tell you, we definitely going to do a part 2 of this show. Is it okay with you guys?
Yeah, I mean, we love the topic, and
okay,
just let us know and see if we're available.
I will. My producer, Jay, is going to get in touch with y'all tomorrow. We setting up a part 2 because I'm getting a lot of texts from people. People are enjoying the show, and they said we coming with real dialogue, and it is real dialogue. Now, this is what I want to ask you, too. Oscar, what do you think some of these families need to do far as the civil suits and what's going on with the law, in the different cities that their children getting shot down at? The ones that really show that they were shot down, no weapon, no nothing, just a cop just out of bounds with his authority.
Right. I mean, you see it all the time. We had recently, before David got released, Mr. Garner choked to death on video in the streets of Staten Island. We're looking very, very closely to see how that case, is handled by the DA there and the grand jury. And folks got to get involved. It's that simple, Cogee.
That's right.
They got to get involved. They got to write their elected officials. They got to look at who they're voting for. They got to put up candidates that make this a priority. In an interview about this case, I said Ken Thompson, I think, is the first elected official in decades who got elected promising to give more rights to defendants and to look closely at the police department and in his borough. And people got to realize that's not a message of weakness. That's a message of strength. We need to stand up to what our Constitution calls for. That the rights of the accused are just as important as the rights of the police officers, and and commit to getting people elected who are willing to look at these issues. And instead of just sitting on your butt all day, write your congressman, write your city councilman, write your local representative, and say, what are you doing to make sure we have a fair police department? What are you doing to make sure we have a fair DA's office? What are you doing to make sure that our people are protected and not occupied? And I think that's where it starts. And everybody can do that. Anybody can get involved. Register to vote. Look at your officials. Ask them where they stand on these issues, and force them to take a stand on it.
Okay, there it is. So
can I add on to something that Oscar just said?
Oh, yeah, I was going to come to you. I was going to say we down to 5 minutes, and I just was going to say, David, what do you think about everything that, me and Oscar said real quick?
Okay, very quick. I can recall last year, last summer, as a matter of fact, during the Democratic primary for Brooklyn District Attorney, I can't tell you how many times that I stayed up 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning looking for campaign news on what was going on. That's how serious and committed I was to following this particular race, because I understood very, very early that had, Mr. Charles Hines had been reelected, I wouldn't be here talking to you right now. And so when Mr. Thompson actually won the primary and then subsequently the election, I was ecstatic, because then I knew that we, meaning myself and my legal team and advocates, knew that we would at least have an opportunity to have our case thoroughly and fairly reviewed. So that's how significant voting is. You know what I mean? So when Oscar talks about that, he's right on, because not only does it affect one individual, it actually affects the community.
Mm-hmm. That's right. You're definitely right about that. Well, like I said, I feel like this is a very great show that we had today, and I mean it. I mean, we really, Oscar, I commend you on what you do, and I mean it. I wish I was a part of it with you. I love this situation right now, what we doing. You know what I'm saying? I love this. And like I said, David, I'm so proud, man, and I'm putting a blessing on you right now that you go far and you keep doing great things. And I really want y'all both to come back on the show. I think we need to finish this because there's so much more I got to say. And you know what I'm saying? I'm going to free the show up and block it up where it's us the whole show. You get what I'm saying?
Sure.
Well, there's a lot of information. We really appreciate you having us on, Cogee, and getting the information out there. And we need more shows like it to get the news out.
Oh, yeah. Well, like I said, we're gonna do our part to, like I said, definitely be the path makers of this situation. I feel like with my platform, I want to help people. I don't want to hurt nobody. I want to give great information. I want to keep people safe. I want to keep them out of harm's way. And the best way to do that is to give them information where if they do it, they can't say they didn't know. No, you knew, because on Cogee's show, I told you get pen and paper. I told you not to do that.
Right.
I told you not to do this. But when something happens your way, you can't say, oh, man, the system is messing with me. Oh, the system is picking on me. No, you put yourself out there for that. And that's what we don't want. So like I said, y'all's informations have been great today. And like I said, I can't wait to part 2. I'm going to have a lot of people in the studio. I'm going to have a lot of people in here with questions. I just text people right now and told them when we do part 2, hey, y'all come in and ask the questions. Don't text me and say ask the questions. Y'all come in and ask the questions. So I want to thank both of y'all for being on today. And I will get in touch with both of y'all off the air so we can talk about setting the show up real soon.
You got it.
Okay. Thank you
Thanks
all.
for having us.
All right. Y'all have a nice
thank
day.
You. Thank you very much.
All right, David.
I appreciate you guys.
Right.
All right. So, everybody, I hope y'all enjoyed the show today, the I've Been Falsely Accused radio show. I'm your host, Cogee, with my main man, Mr. Jeffrey Deskovic, with my girl, the Fox. Fox, what you want to say to everybody real quick?
I really enjoyed the show, and that's a lot of information for everybody out there, and Cogee is really doing this for out of the love. So take that information and use it in your life.
That's right. Thank you, Foxy. Miss Peaches, real quick.
Great show, Cogee, and happy birthday to Jeffrey again, and everyone did a great job today.
Alan, man, real quick.
Hey, let's get it going. Cogee can have a movement.
That's right,
Either
man.
you guys are with us or against us.
That's right. You know that's right. Miss Donna Buchanan, thank you for calling in. Everybody who support us, I definitely want to thank you for being a part of the show today. Much love to my radio station. Much love to everybody that's out there that's showing me love. Much love to my family, my loved ones. I hope I'm doing a great job to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do to keep y'all safe, because that's what I'm in it for. I'm not in it to go against nobody. I'm not in it to hurt nobody. I'm just for the right. I just want people to be okay. So much love to y'all, and I'm looking forward to next week's show. I can't wait to do this for y'all, all right? So much love. I'm your host, Cogee. Stay blessed, stay safe, and use your knowledge. We out, baby.